Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Final Whistle, a Lewiston Tribune sports podcast. I'm Sam Taylor, sports reporter with the Lewiston Tribune and the Moscow Pullman Daily News, and I'm joined by my fellow sports reporter, Trevor Junt.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome. I'm glad to be here. Again, sports reporter for the Lewiston Tribune and Moscow Pullman Daily News, like Sam. Covered more of the Vandals than he does, and just excited to be here.
Sweet. And Trevor, you've been, in Lewiston now for 17 days.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And we're really excited to just kind of dive into what that's all been. Actually, let's just start from the top of just what your whole experience has been. You're from the Tri-Cities. You moved, you went to Washington State, went to Northwestern, found your way now here to Lewiston. But just kind of what's your origin story and how do you end up here at the Tribune?
As a young man, I started in the Tri-Cities, Washington, Kennewick. Pretty much about sports reporting, I guess. One time I was 7 or 8 years old. I was watching NFL Network. And I saw Rich Eisen giving us the news, and I was like, "That's what I want to do. I want to do exactly what he does. A little bit different than what he does. Obviously, I'm not a TV guy. I'm more of a written guy. But that's where I got started in sports journalism. There, went to Southreach High School. Yeah, let's go in Kennewick. Then went to WSU, got involved with the Daily Evergreen from you. Thank you for that. Got involved in Cable 8 and really enjoyed the sports department there. And then went to go get my master's at Northwestern. Covered a bunch of stuff. Got to cover the Super Bowl, which was great. And then came here and got a job here. So, yeah, that's basically from the start to here is here we are now. And then Lewiston, dude. Let's talk about just the city of Lewiston. I'm living there for the first time ever. Never even been to the Valley. 2 weeks ago was the first time I've been here. Great town. I thought it'd be much smaller. It's actually pretty cool to live in, and I'm enjoying it where I'm at right now. The paper is a lot of fun. The people that we work with are great. I love Steph. Love Cody. Even though the people that I don't talk to very much in the newsroom are great people. So glad to be here, and yeah, just having fun so far.
Sweet. Well, it's amazing to have you, Trevor. As Trevor said, we worked together at the Daily Evergreen and in Cable 8 as Washington State University students. And now, post-college, we're back here.
Yeah.
Tribune. It's pretty fun.
The team is back together, basically.
Yeah. It's fantastic. And so we're excited to have you here, Trevor, and we're excited to talk about, some of the stories that we've covered the last 2 weeks and that you've had the chance to cover. And you've gotten to, basically your first, Vandal basketball game you covered were postseason games on the same day with the Idaho women and the Idaho men at the Big Sky tournament just 2 weeks ago. And then first we talk about the Washington State basketball teams and their future. They're not quite done playing yet. Lewis Clark State men's and women's basketball qualified for the NAIA tournament yet again, but unfortunately their seasons came to a close. And then we'll talk about a little bit of spring sports. Lewiston and Clarkston had their Battle for the Bats baseball game at Harris Field. Trevor was on hand for that. And of course, brackets are out. March Madness is here for men's and women's basketball, college basketball. And so we'll talk all about that and more right here on the Final Whistle. Be sure to subscribe and like this video and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or listen on Spotify or Apple Music or, wherever you get your podcasts. That's where you can find us. And we're really excited that you've decided to spend a little bit of your morning, evening, or afternoon or middle of the night with us. We really appreciate it. And so, starting actually with the with college basketball, local college basketball. Trevor, you got the chance to see the Vandals men's and women's basketball teams play in the Big Sky tournament. Vandal women unfortunately found their season came to a close in their round game, first round game or second round game, right? They got a bye. And then the Idaho men making history, winning their first Big Sky tournament game in 8 years. Mm-hmm. Obviously you're just getting to know these teams, and now you'll have to pick up with them next year. But what did you see from just covering Vandal basketball last week?
First off, I would say the fan base for the Vandals is very passionate. It was cool to see. I mean, Boise, I guess, is not too far away. I think it's 5 hours, 6 hours.
Yeah, pretty much.
Something like that, But there were a lot of fans in Boise at Starch Madness, as they called it, which I loved. There was a lot of Vandal fans there, and it was pretty cool to see the Vandal fans show up. Women's basketball, I mean, they got beat pretty easily by Montana. The Grizzlies just kind of showed up and showed out. It was definitely a tough battle, but I don't know. Montana looked really good in that game for the women's basketball. And for men's, again, made history. First time since 2017 they won in the tournament. And yeah, I don't know. It looked really good the first game. They ran a 2-3 defense. So 2 guys up here and 3 guys in the back towards the basket and the baseline. It was a very different defense that like you don't really see. You see that like YMCA level. You don't really see that in college or professional. So it definitely confused Montana a lot. So I don't know. It was definitely very fun to watch the first game, and then when they lost to Northern Colorado, that wasn't so fun. Not Northern Colorado. Is that right?
Montana, right?
Yeah. Yes. So yeah. It was fun to see Idaho beat Portland State first off since the first time since 2017, and then Idaho versus Montana. That was a rougher game. Montana was shooting lights out from 3. They looked really good, and they were just the team to advance. That's what happened there.
Yeah, and if you're a Vandal fan, you can't feel too bad about being beat by Montana because after all, the Grizzly men's team ended up winning the Big Sky, earning that automatic bid, and now I think they'll face Wisconsin in first round of March Madness. And so if you have hate in your heart for Montana, you'll probably see their season come to a close, in like a couple days. So you have that to be thankful for, Vandals fans. But I mean, it's so for the Vandals, I mean, there's a lot to like about this year for college basketball. The Idaho women's team was basically completely new. They had 2 players who returned to the roster, 2 returners. Everyone else was brand new, either a freshman or a transfer. And so you have Coach Arthur Moreira, who was in his first year at the helm. He was an assistant last year, and he was kind of just able to remake this roster with a lot of recruitment, both international and then just like graduate students from like Division 2 or 3 level, and just bringing them back, or Division 2 mostly, and then bringing them up to the Big Sky basketball. And so you have girls like Olivia Nelson, Hope Hasman, and that they really formed this kind of Rosie Schweitzer, and all were new to Moscow. And so they all came together, and they, despite getting bounced, in their first game, one and done in the Big Sky tournament, there was a lot to like. Idaho women's, I think they won a lot of games.
They won
18 games, which is more than, I don't know the last time the Vandals won that many games for the women's side.
I don't know that either, actually. I think this is their best year in quite a while. Yeah. I will say that. Olivia Nelson, by the way, scored her 1,000th point in her career this year, so that's great for her. I don't know. It was definitely a better season than they've had in the past. The loss to Montana was just, again, like, it was just a real tough game. It was just really tough. You had a player get a double-double on Montana. She had 18 rebounds, which was almost a program record, almost a Big Sky record. I think she was like 3 rebounds away from breaking the full-on record and 2 from tying it. And then that was Tyler McCall, and then Danny Barch also had a double-double for Montana. So I don't know. They just played really well, and they just outplayed the Vandals pretty easily.
Definitely. And like this Idaho women's squad, I guess, they've had their good years. They've been floating around, 14 to 17 wins each of the last 5 years. But this is the best season since 2019 through 20, when they won 22 games. And so, yeah.
You could be really excited for Arthur Moreira. You could definitely say that. There's a lot of excitement around women's basketball and him growing the sport more. So you could say the same thing about Alex Pribble.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is one of their best years, again, since 2017, wins-wise, too. So he was really excited. I think after the game he talked about how they wanted to paint the picture of what Idaho basketball could be, not what it is currently. So he's looking to grow the program more and looking to bring more players in and just have better and better years each year. I mean, they didn't have a great year, 13 wins, but they had double-digit wins for 5 straight years. It was a real rough stretch there. And then you're going back to, I don't know, it was 2012 or 2015 was when 2017, I guess, is when they were best last, I guess.
Right, yeah.
So I mean, 14 wins is nothing to bat an eye at after going, they had a 1-win season during that stretch. Oh, so this is definitely an improvement. I would say Alex Pribble, again, there's also excitement there.
Totally. And it's exciting. It's cool to note so Pribble and Washington State men's coach David Riley were assistants on the Eastern Washington staff years ago. Mm-hmm. And then Pribble got this shot to coach the Vandals. and then Riley became head coach of Eastern. So there was a little rivalry there in the same conference, and now they're neighbors on the Palouse. They played a regular season basketball game, Battle of the Palouse, in November, and just catching up with both of them at that moment, it was really cool to see. Pribble in his second year, right in charge of the program, and then Riley in his first year, and just to see the growth and development of maybe Pribble's in his third year. I should know that, but just to see that kind of both those programs kind of take off, but particularly Idaho. I mean, you mentioned how it wasn't necessarily like flying colors. They're not, obviously March has come and they done with the Big Sky tournament and their season is over. So it's hard to necessarily call that a glowing success, but relative to the history of Vandal basketball, it's definitely a successful season, a step in the right direction when you just consider the history. And there were some good moments. Like I remember that the University of Northern Colorado game where they won on the buzzer beater from Colton Mitchell.
Yeah.
And that was, that probably wound up on SportsCenter. Like that was a fantastic shot, 3-pointer to win that one.
Colton Mitchell also in the Portland State game played all 40 minutes. Wow. He did not rest. He didn't take a single rest on the bench. So he didn't have a crazy statistical game, but like he was just there. Important on defense. Important. He had. I think he led the team in assists. I think he's 7 assists or so. Yeah. So I don't know. That was cool to see. And then Jack Payne was also really important to the offense. He scored a lot of points. And yeah, it was definitely very fun to watch in tournament for the first game against Portland State. That was a lot of fun. They took a huge lead, like you said earlier, and then later on against Montana when they lost. It was just a rough game defensively, totally. But yeah, again, like you said, I keep saying it too, but Pribble is just hoping to build on his program more and more. 11 wins in his first season, 14 in his second, and I expect more and more each year.
Yeah, with the transfer portal, nothing's guaranteed. Everyone, each one of these stars could get, offers somewhere else and transfer. Now, there's no indication, no reporting that may happen or may not happen. That's just speculation. It's just something that, these programs are constantly on guard about.
It's more than speculation.
But, yeah.
It just happens in college basketball.
Yeah, totally.
College sports in general, yeah.
Yeah. And so, we saw it with Wazoo men's, between their March Madness year last year and this year, 2 players remained on the roster, Isaiah Watts and Parker Gerardis. And, that team looked completely different staff and different, staff turnover is one thing. And then the roster turnover, Kyle Smith usually had to, patch together like starting lineups from year to year to year. Mm-hmm. And that's what made that March Madness year last year for Wazoo so remarkable, is that you had so many newcomers just converging on and were contributing. And so,
Sam, let's transition to Wazoo men's basketball.
Totally.
So what's happening? They're going to this inaugural tournament, right? Is that right? They're going to the Crown. What is it? What's the name of the tournament?
Yeah, College Basketball Crown. So that's where Wazoo's going. It's pretty exciting. It's the first year that this tournament has existed. It's happening in Las Vegas, and someone's basically just calling it like the mini Pac-12 tournament, because you've got USC, you've got Oregon State, you got Colorado, you got all these teams, formerly Pac-12 or some current Oregon State and Washington State, and a future Pac-12 team in Boise State, all converging in Vegas. And so it's one of those invitational tournaments. There's the NIT, there's all these different. There's a couple other ones, but this is a new one that's taking place. It's sponsored by Fox Sports and then one of the casino companies in Vegas. And so they put this tournament together. Wazoo will continue to play basketball, not just deep into March, but on the last day of March. Their first round game is March 31st. So we wait quite a while until then, but it's kind of March 31st and then April 5th, the championship. And so they'll play through the bracket. First starting with an 8 p.m. March 31st game against Georgetown, and that'll be on FS1.
So 16-team field, is that?
Yeah, 16-team field. Honestly, lots to look forward to in that, because you've got the former Pac-12 schools, a lot of these brands, and a future Pac-12 school in Boise State, and I think a chance for I think Wazoo and Boise State to potentially meet in that bracket.
That'd be really cool.
And they met in Boise, and Wazoo won that. And honestly, that loss to Wazoo that Boise State took is probably a big reason they're not in the big dance, unfortunately, for Broncos fans. But like we were talking about with Wazoo, like the roster just looks completely different. It's than it did last year in the March Madness year. And you had David Riley as his first year head coach coming from Eastern Washington, bringing four of his Eastern Washington players. You had Cedric Coward, Lamont Watts, Ethan Price, Dane Erikstrup. Erickstrup and Price are seniors, so it's a nice chance for them to continue their college basketball careers. And then Lawan Watts, he said, I'm a Coug for sure in the post-game press conference after their tournament loss, but nothing's guaranteed. And, they even said, Coach Riley said in the moment, that's a lot of pressure to put like a 20-year-old to ask them, hey, you're going to stay at Wazoo? Who knows? Nobody knows.
And we remember like even going back to some football players, but football players would like say, I'm staying committed, I'm staying at WSU, and then they would just transfer.
Yeah.
So, that happens. I mean, it's, again, the new face of basketball, a new face of college sports, just switch and switch and switch.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a sense. Well, this is kind of a deeper topic of like the portal is a sense to be bitter or to say there's no loyalty or the kids don't work hard. But I don't know. I think just from an outsider's perspective, but at least being of a similar age, there's a lot of I don't necessarily know what I'm having for dinner tonight in like 3 hours. So how do I expect someone my age to be like to know what they want to do with their basketball career? Within the next year. And
also,
so
I mean, if they can make money, if you're 18 years old and you can make I don't know, tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars, take that deal. Absolutely. In my opinion. If I'm offered that big of a contract, I'm 18, 19, I'm taking that deal very, very quickly. So, like, there is no reason to be bitter. I think that we should celebrate that these 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds are getting paid for playing basketball or playing football. So yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there.
And so, obviously, that's the factor that the Wazoo men are going to have to consider going forward. How many players will they lose? But then, of course, there's always the potential to gain. And so what made Kyle Smith's roster last year so special is that he caught, lightning in the bottle, you could say. But he got the right guys in the room, and they did the right things, and they put together something special last year. And so that's what a lot of these teams you're going to see in March Madness are in similar situations. Everyone's playing, well, not by the same rules, but everyone should be playing by the same rules. Obviously, some with different resources than the others, but especially for these mid-majors, a lot of these starters who are on these mid-majors, maybe they're there for like 1 or 2 years. That's probably where it's going to tilt. But I mean, the Wazoo men, there was a lot of good, it was fun to see Gonzaga back on the Palouse, playing a men's basketball game after not doing that for 10 years. That atmosphere in Pullman several weeks ago was electric. Just seeing basically it wasn't quite sold out, but it was nearly sold out. That's the kind of atmosphere that, college basketball is all about, that Beasley needs. It was, spending 40 minutes trying to find parking on surface streets was, an inconvenience. But once you walk through the doors and you saw the electricity in that building, it was fantastic. And so, lots to be hopeful for the Wazoo men. And just from what you've seen, you think David Riley can be that guy that can put together the next special Wazoo team?
To be honest, I don't know too much about David Riley. The team looked. They started out 13-3. That's terrific. Yeah. Terrific. And then what was their record after that? Do you remember that? It was
19-11 or something.
So
19-30, yeah.
They lost a lot of games towards the end of their schedule.
Yeah.
So that's rough. What happened there? Was it Coward getting injured?
Yeah, they finished 19-14 or so. So they lost 10 of their last 15 regular season games before they get into the tournament.
Lost 10 of 15.
Yeah,
that's rough.
Season. It is rough, and you're right. It is injuries. Cedric Coward, the top, probably, he was getting some NBA draft consideration last year, and certainly will going forward. He was one of the top transfer from Eastern Washington. Been with Riley his whole career. He came in having a great start to the year, got injured, out for the year. Shoulder injury. And then Isaiah Watts, who was one of the 2 players that returned from last year's March Madness team. He's an excellent player. He got hurt. He was out for about a month, and so that certainly didn't help. And so he returned to the court, but at that point it was a lot of West Coast Conference is no joke. Like it's a tough league.
I guess also just to be less critical, 19 wins in your first season as a head coach. That's pretty terrific.
Right.
Like, everybody's shooting for something like that.
Exactly. And if we put it in a historical perspective, David Riley has the second most wins in program history of any first-year men's basketball coach.
Yeah. Then, that's terrific.
Yeah.
You can't get much better than that. You hope to make the tournament. But I don't know. If injuries are holding you back, that's a terrific first year.
Totally. And I think it's marred because of how good the start was. 13-3. Your sights are on, Wazoo should have heard their name called yesterday, Selection Sunday, and that should have been, the standard. But it's when you look at how the season unfolded, you can see where, the fan disdain may come from. But I think a lot of fans are probably of that mind where it's like, hey, this team is young, it's exciting, the staff is young, they're promising, and so you got to give them time. And they get this, that's the other beauty of having an invitational postseason tournament that they're going to participate in, is that they get for the next 2-3 weeks have practices together and continue to build those relationships and continue to just grow as a team. And so the hope is that, especially we'll talk about this for the Wazoo women as well, the hope is that that extra time they put together in the gym in March will pay off, and maybe we'll see them on the national stage in the March Madness next March. And so, and then so for the Wazoo women, it's a similar thing, right? They first year in the West Coast Conference of the Pac-12 blew up. Charlie Sedgwick-Walker, program legend, second or third highest scorer in program history, transfers to UCLA after getting hurt her senior year. They lose Bella Murkatete, they lose Johanna Tedar. They've, that senior class that was so crucial to 3 straight NCAA tournament appearances is gone. And they replace it they replaced that group with 6 pretty promising freshmen and, just an exciting young team. And so for the Wazoo women, Gonzaga and Portland, they lost. They got swept by both those teams in the regular season. They lost to Portland in the West Coast Conference tournament. But there was a lot of things to like about the Wazoo women's team. Tara Wallach as a senior, just to see the growth that she's had in her career was interesting to see and just remarkable. And then looking towards the future, you've got Estera Tahina, Eleanor Avila, Diana Mendez, a lot of these players who are pretty dynamic and have been around and trust Cami Etheridge. And the nice part about Etheridge's programs is they've been pretty transfer proof, other than, older players wanting to play somewhere else their 5th year, which is like a normal part of college basketball, like Charlize. Most Etheridge, when you look at just like, what other college programs are going through, it's night and day. It's like, what decade are you playing in? And that's one of the reasons why Etheridge why Coach E wanted to stay, is because she feels supported and she feels like she can win here because, the staff and the atmosphere and the program can retain players. And I think that kind of shows up in their play for sure.
It shows in her contract extensions too. I mean, she's getting a new one every year just to add on to that. And we didn't mention, I don't think we did mention, but the NIT, they were going to the NIT, right? And they have a bye in their first game, right?
Yeah. So sorry, I kind of buried the lead. So the Washington State women qualified for the Women's National Invitation Tournament, which is now kind of like the 3rd best tournament you can get into, but nonetheless, it's a postseason opportunity. And like we're saying with the Wazoo men, it's a chance for that team to continue to practice in March, continue to get just better at basketball and to grow and deepen those relationships. And then to get that win or go home tournament style tournament experience.
What do you expect them to be like in this tournament?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting tournament because as you said, they got a first round bye.
48 teams, right?
Yeah, 48 teams. They'll get a first round bye. They'll play the winner of Air Force and Utah Valley, and the location of that and the time and the day has all yet to be announced. It's a very interesting tournament with a bunch of kind of behind the scenes, like which teams are paying the most or where can you, I don't know. There's a bunch of factors that go into hosting that I'm not even sure of, but they're figuring those out as they go. But regardless of when and where and what the game is like, it's a chance to play another college basketball game or 2 or 3, depending on how many they can win. And I think just Wazoo's certainly probably one of the better teams. They've got a lot of they won 20 games this year. The 3rd straight year they've won 20 or more games. And yes, they came in the West Coast Conference, not as tough as the Pac-12 that they're used to, but there were still some pretty hard fought games in that schedule. And then they played Stanford, they played Iowa, they played Oregon, lost all 3 of those, but they attempted to give themselves a very difficult, and they did give themselves a very difficult non-conference slate to grow as a team and to prepare them for, the future.
Cami Etheridge has to be one of the most consistent coaches that WTU has seen.
Yeah.
I mean, they're good every single year. Totally. They're solid. They've got great players every year. I think Tara Wallach, I did a story about Tara Wallach. she's like in the top 10 of like so many categories in just like WSU history.
Yeah.
She started 100 it might have been 200 games. It's since the 2022 season or 2023 season. She started every game since there.
Yeah. So yeah. It's over 100. It's like 110, 109 at this point or something like that. Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. So Tara Wallach is cementing herself in WSU lore like for forever basically. And yeah, so solid players every year. Etheridge is an excellent coach. I'm sure WSU's glad to have her around. I mean, she's a women's basketball Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah, and a Olympic gold medalist.
Yes.
1988 Olympics.
Kimmy Etheridge is so solid. If I'm WSU, I'm super glad to have her around.
Absolutely. And so, for Kook fans, the basketball season continues, maybe not at the biggest stage that you wanted, but still you get to watch your team continue to play.
And potentially 20 wins is nothing to bat an eye at.
Nothing. Yeah, it's fantastic. Nothing to bat an eye at. Exactly. It's pretty fantastic. And just looking at all the youth that they had on this team, it's understandable why it didn't click early in the year, but you've seen it gradually improve. And even in their last game against Portland, the WCC semifinal, West Coast Conference semifinals, they were leading by like 12 with like 2 minutes left in the first half. They had a remarkable first half. They were kind of just beating the pressure. They were getting the ball, two open shooters throwing over the pilots like the press, and so they were beating the press and getting the ball over into the court and open court and getting shots up, and everything was landing and it was working. And then the second half, Portland, who had won the West Coast Conference the last 2 years, they'd been there, done that. They kind of proved why they were the 2 seed, why they've had such a good season, and they came back and they won by 11. And it was like a night and day first and second half.
Reason why did they stop shooting well? Did they stop playing good defense? What happened?
Yeah, I think when looking at the game, I think it was just Portland stopped pressing as much.
Okay.
Because the Wazoo had a lot of their offensive success off of beating the press, and Portland realized, hey, this strategy is kind of hurting us, so they stopped. And then a lot of the shots that were falling, like when they were just playing like a half court offense, trying to get the sets, Wazoo was doing. Just they were missing shots, and so you're gonna make shots, you're gonna miss shots, and I mean that's just the game. Obviously, the reason you practice and all that is that so the ball goes through the hoop, but sometimes it just doesn't, and it does for the other team. I mean that's like a super basic, like maybe cheap analysis, but the Wazoo had the strategy in the first half, and then Portland just kind of broke through in the second, and so yeah. And then other Pac-12 news, Oregon State women ended up beating Portland in the next day in the conference championship to get the automatic bid. And Wazoo, a big reason why this season was a success and why they got to 20 wins is they were able to beat that Oregon State team twice in the regular season. Wazoo was.
Oh, wow.
And so they beat the eventual conference tournament champion, but they didn't get a crack at the conference tournament champion in the actual tournament.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough how that works out.
And then LC State, let's talk about Lewis Clark State.
Yeah.
I mean, the men's team, it was rough. Alton Hamilton, he played well. He had a double-double. He had 16 points, 11 rebounds, but kind of looked like he was struggling offensively. And he was because the team they were playing against was St. Francis. They were just clogging all the lanes. They weren't playing like a soft defense. They were in the middle, not letting LC State get at all near the lanes in the middle, and it just stuffed their offense because Lewis Clark State is not a good shooting team, so it was very rough. Even Austin Johnson, their head coach, said, "Yeah, like we're not a great shooting team. I didn't expect us to make our shots that well, but if we would have made one or more, if he named like 3 players, if we nailed one more each, we could have won this game because at the end they did get close. They got 4 points close." But most of the time, it was just a big lead by St. Francis. Yeah. So, I mean, as we mentioned, Alton Hamilton, he was the Cascade Conference Player of the Year. Yeah. So we will say that. And again, he put up a double-double. Even though he looked like he struggled, put up a double-double. He played well. Yeah. The guy he was playing against, Isaiah Malone, he really went off. He had 22 points, I believe, or 24. He had 24 points. But he did take 19 shots. And then Almodovar, their second best player, scored 19. He had a lot of threes. And they had one guy who shot 5 for 10 from the field. 5 of them, all 5 shots being 3-pointers. He nailed all 5. So St. Francis played well. 2 of their guys were nearly All-American players, Austin Johnson said. So that was important. And yeah, a good defensive team that the Warriors are, they just didn't play good defense. And that's why they lost mainly, I would say. Because they couldn't score and they couldn't play main defense. If you can't do either of those, you're going to lose a game.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a rough game for LC State. And then LC State women, you covered them.
Yeah, I guess just to stay on the LC State men for 1 second. It's interesting how that season shakes out. They're in a league with the number 1 team in the NAIA in College of Idaho, and so, but nonetheless, with kind of 2 automatic losses to. I mean, you hate to say you're gonna walk in and lose, but College of Idaho is just on this whole other plane of existence, it seems. And LC still fought hard against them, took those 2 losses. But nonetheless posted overall record of 24-8. And so
yeah, that's the thing.
Pretty impressive. Yeah.
This season was like a top 10 season, and it's their 6th most wins in school history.
Yeah.
So it's like, as much as you want to be sad about the ending, like you have to like just kind of flush it. I mean, you can't flush it. You end your season, but it's like we reset and we realize we did a really good job this season. We have nothing to be mad at. We accomplished a lot. Austin Johnson, their head coach, said that the team will just decompress and then just realize we maximized who we are as a team. We'll always remember the memories we had playing together, playing in the locker room together. It sucks to lose. It sucks to play bad, but 40 minutes doesn't take away a whole season.
Right.
Yeah. So 24 wins is awesome. That's a great season for Lewis Clark State.
Definitely. And then just looking towards the future for the Warrior men. Dylan Scafie, a freshman out of Ferris High School in Spokane. He started the year on the bench. And then, kind of reminded me of obviously different circumstances, but of Jalen Wells last year starting the year on the bench for the Cougars, and then making his way to the starting lineup, hitting some key shots, had some big performances, and now he's in running for NBA Rookie of the Year. Now, Dylan's not going to the NBA next year, but what is cool is that it was a similar type of work ethic arc where he, started the year on the bench, just wasn't getting that much playing time. And Austin Johnson, in conversations with him, basically he said, we've got a lot of shooters, but you get to stay, you earn your playing time by how well you can play defense. And so that's obviously still like
they were the second best team in the conference in defense. They in points per game and also just in defense in general as well. Also, speaking on people local, John Lustig. Got Colfax native. He was he was an honorable mention for all conference player. He played well in the game. 11 points on 50% shooting. But again, still not enough to get over the edge. But still, I mean, he had a really great season. A lot of these players played really well this season. So it's nothing to be like too sad about. As Austin Johnson said, like decompress, take a few weeks, and then realize, hey, we did a great thing. We played really well this season.
Yeah. And it's with Dylan, with John, with Alton, a lot of these players, they're not seniors, they're not necessarily going anywhere. And obviously they could transfer. That's always a chance of that happening, like we talked about with the other sports. But I've noticed that the NAIA tends to retain their rosters quite a bit better than NCAA.
Yeah.
And now obviously that's maybe because they have fewer options, but I think also it's more importantly, I mean, you can go anywhere you want as a basketball player to an extent. Like there's other programs that I'm sure would take their services, but there's not as much. And I was gonna say, just like it's kind of a different ball game. Like there's not as much NIL necessarily at this level. Maybe there is if they can get up to another level. But what LC does so well in particular is they build that culture and they build that connection, and a lot of these guys stick around for that and care about each other.
Yeah, I would add on to that. If I just came off of a top 10 season in program history, if I just won 24 games, I want to come back to this team and I want to run it back. Totally. I want to try winning the tournament next year. So, yeah, absolutely. More retainment is possible. And also, like, just by mentality, it's possible, too. Just straight there.
Yeah.
And then, so let's talk about Lewis Clark women.
Absolutely, yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the women's team, they ended up, the Warriors ended up winning the first round game of the NIA tournament, and then they advanced to face Briarcliff. And so Briarcliff was the quad host, so they were hosting all the games at their home stadium, home arena. And so obviously it basically was a road game in the postseason against a really good team. And Caitlin Orlandi, the coach of the Lewis Clark State Warriors women's basketball team, was mentioning how, just leading up to the game, how Briarcliff is in a similar spot to where LC State is, in that they're kind of in the shadow of one of the top teams in the country. LC State, they ended up, both the men and the women ended up advancing to the Cascade Conference Final. But so in that Cascade Conference Final for the women's side, the Warriors lost to Southern Oregon. And so they had three losses, 3 of their 6 regular season losses, 3 of their regular season / conference tournament losses to Southern Oregon. And then you had Briarcliff, who faced the number 1 team, also from Iowa. I forget the name of that team, but they lost 3 games to that team as well, including their conference final. And so basically Briarcliff is they're not necessarily bad. I mean, obviously they're all good teams. They're all in the postseason, and they're ranked number 5 in the nation. And for a minute there in that game, it looked like LC State had a chance. They the first quarter was a 12-4 Briarcliff lead, but incredible defense all around from both teams. And then LC State just exploded in the second quarter, like over 20 points. Their bench really sparked them. None of their starters had more than 3. None of the Warriors starters had more than 3 points in the first half. And then you had Grace Bearden and Lindsey Wilson come in and get 8 and 9 points. So Grace Bearden got 8 points all in the span of like 5 minutes in the second quarter, hitting a couple threes and getting the free throw line. And so that was what really sparked their comeback. And they had a 4-point halftime lead despite no starter having more than 3 points. And so then the second half.
That's insane.
It is insane, yeah. And then the second half, it was kind of back and forth, LC actually kind of got the lead, managed to stay in front. And then the fourth quarter, they managed to stay in front until Briarcliff kind of just got to another level, scored 29 points in the fourth quarter, the Briarcliff Chargers did. Whoa. And LC State, they scored 17 in the fourth, but couldn't match that production and ended up losing that game, I think, by 11. And so, it's like, as far as college basketball games go, that's got a little bit of everything. You got tight defense, you got explosive offense, all at different points. Ellie Sander playing in her last game, senior on the team, 1,000 career points, 500 career rebounds. She had, several threes, and then just like this 1-and-1 where, she's like, basically she puts the shot up as she's like falling out of bounds. She lands on her back, watches the shot go in, and then gets to shoot the free throw to tie the game in the fourth quarter. So it had drama, it had excitement, everything you've wanted, and there's a lot to like. Obviously they're losing Ellie Sander, that's gonna hurt, but they're gaining or retaining rather. They have 5 rising seniors, 3 rising juniors, and they expect to retain most of those, all if not all of those players.
Sander was another 1,000-point person too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sander had 1,000 points and 500 career rebounds. She hit both those milestones this year.
Wow. So you said Briarcliff scored 29 in the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
So what happened?
What happened in the
Why such an offensive explosion?
Yeah, I think that's a great. I think it just changed because one, it's fatigue, and then 2, it's the home court advantage, and then just so actually Olani called it. Also, the other stat is the turnovers. Warriors turned the ball over 27 times, and so there was a sequence in the fourth quarter where they turned the ball over on 3 straight possessions, and Briarcliff got points out of 2 of those. And so Warriors largely shot themselves in the foot with those turnovers, and then just with the it's hard to defend a fast break. Unless you're going to really catch up, and then, you take away the fast break opportunity.
Around 10 to 15 turnovers, so that's it's a lot more turnovers than you want.
Yeah, so it's kind of remarkable that it was that close and they led for that long with that many turnovers.
Yeah, it's true.
But a lot of those ended up happening in the fourth quarter. A lot of their 27, 28 turnovers, and that's how they got behind. So they turned the ball over, didn't defend well enough to cancel that out, and then the offense was still working, but when you're turning the ball over, for every shot or assist you get, you're turning the ball over maybe 1 or 2 times, and that's gonna shoot you or hurt you. And so that's what happened. There's a lot. Obviously, it's done now. Nothing. And as you said, they're not going to flush it. I'm sure they're going to remember this for the next few months. They're going to continue to show up and work, and effort was not the problem for either of these teams.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge credit to the coaching staffs, and just Warrior fans have a lot to like about next year for both basketball teams.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I think one of our last topics was Battle of the Bats, right?
Yeah, Battle for the Bats. So,
Battle for the Bats. My bad. Yeah.
no, basketball season. So we'll close that chapter book for a little bit, and then Trevor, you got a chance to go over to Harris Field, breathe in the spring air, or late winter air. It felt like spring kind of last week and kind of today.
Love the city, but love the city. If we're talking about air, I smell that paper mill. I wake up in the morning and want to take my dog for a walk, and I just hit with that paper mill smell.
Yeah.
But no, dude, Harris Field was wonderful. The first time ever being there, again, new to the Valley. The fans showed up. It was a mostly full Harris Field, and also we back home in the Tri-Cities, we have the Tri-City Dust Devils. Harris Field is pretty comparable to the Dust Devils stadium, which is a single A team. So it was really cool. The press box was awesome. It was tinted too, and then you had like a little like thing to like roll down, and it was tinted more. So it was like really nice when the sun was just blaring. But yeah, Battle for the Bats was super cool. I mean, what happened at the end was Lewiston. First off, Lewiston won. Lewiston won 10-0, and then they were awarded a wooden thing with a golden bat, and they had a purple baseball, and they all got to sign the baseball. And continue that for the next year. I mean, what happened? I think Lewiston pitching was lights out. First up, it was Zach Bambasino. He started the game. He pitched the first 3 innings, and he got the win overall. He let 1 hit in the ball game, had 1 walk, had 4 strikeouts, and then Estlund, Jaden Estlund, he came in during the 4th inning. The game only went 5 innings because of the 10-run rule. And then he was just perfect. He seriously didn't let him hit, didn't let him walk, didn't do anything. So the pitching was lights out. I also think that Lewiston's a large high school compared to Clarkston being a lot smaller. So I think it's like you have a lot of more players, so you have a little bit more talent. So definitely struggles there. But I mean, it was fun to watch. The fans were wonderful. The people at the stadium were wonderful. The staff that helped me out get there, because I didn't know where I was going. I just kind of got there and just like, hey, where am I supposed to go? Hey, where am I supposed to go? And they just led me. They led me to the press box. But yeah, there were still positives for Clarkston. I mean, one thing that the head coach said, Taylor Marshall, he said earlier in the week they played a game. I don't think it was technically a real game. It might have been like a scrimmage, but he said that they didn't play with a lot of heart. He said that there wasn't a lot of passion, and then they really challenged their guys to come in there and play with passion. So even though they lost, he was happy with the outcome of them actually showing up and trying their best, being very passionate about the game of baseball and playing well. Like he was pretty happy about that. But I don't know, Battle for the Bats, it was really cool. I guess I should have realized there's like a Clarkston-Lewiston rivalry, with the Golden Throne for basketball, right? And yeah, so there's a lot of like different quirky things around Clarkston and Lewiston rivalries, and I think that's a lot of fun. I think it's a really good job by both leadership teams to start this rivalry for baseball and hope to have fans show up. Because also, like, the atmosphere, both coaches talked about the atmosphere. They said, like, it was a great atmosphere, phenomenal from the community. Marshall said that, like, a lot of Lewiston fans show up often, but Clarkston fans showing up to Lewiston was great too. So, yeah, it was definitely very cool. Very proud of the community overall.
Yeah. I also want to give a huge shout out to the Lewiston High School broadcast team.
Yes, that was so cool.
For the game, and that's fortunately probably one of the only Lewiston baseball games that's going to get to be broadcast in any format, because they're not being covered by any of the radio stations in town. And so for the Lewiston students to do that, and fortunately they were saying this is probably our first and last baseball game, because their home stadium, Church Field, doesn't necessarily have the amenities to accommodate them having a broadcast, but maybe they can put together like not the full audio visual presentation, but maybe like a radio first broadcast or something. So I don't know if anyone has power over that or influence. I would encourage you to keep going, because that was fun, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, and we have friends in TV production industry. It was cool to see like just these young kids working with the cameras, wrapping up the wires the way that we used to do it, and kids in the broadcast booth reading the names and doing everything. It was really cool to watch. Definitely encourage that more. Yeah. More from the community overall. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and that's what I love about these community events is it's a chance for everyone to be involved in a little bit. Obviously, you've got the coaches and the players and who are actually coaching and playing the game, but and the fans in the stands cheering on. You've got organizations that are using it to spread awareness about their events and their causes. You've got broadcast students and students are interested in that industry, getting that experience and showing up. And,
Oh yeah, dude, they had a 50-50 raffle.
oh yeah,
and
yeah.
and 50% of it goes to like the schools,
Yeah.
in their athletic departments. Dude, they expected to get like $200. They got like $500.
Yeah.
So it was like a huge thing for the departments to get that much money.
Yeah.
So that was definitely very cool as well.
That's fantastic. And so just, bravo to the communities of Lewiston and Clarkson for putting together Battle for the Bats. That was certainly fun to see and really excited to see it grow, right? I think there's a lot of potential for it to keep growing.
I think it'll be more fun as the years go on.
Yeah. Right on. Alrighty. And now it is March Madness as well. And so we'll open that basketball book just a little bit. I haven't necessarily looked at the bracket that closely. Are you excited for, I guess, just in general of brackets and just the subject of like predicting things? No one's had a perfect bracket, but do you remember how close you've gotten to perfection?
I saw they do these leagues, where they do points and stuff.
Yeah.
I think my best, I led through, I don't know, only like a few games. It's so tough. Brackets are so tough.
Yeah.
Impossible. Like, because you want to do fun games. You want to do what you want to happen, but also you need to be logical at the same time.
Right.
So yeah, brackets are a lot of fun, but definitely very tough. I've never really had a great bracket.
Yeah. And then a lot of the time, you think this is going to happen, think logic's going to happen, and then it just breaks right open.
Yeah, that's the thing with March Madness.
There's that upset. You got the Owls winning, and that's insane. And who's going to be this year's Cinderella? I've heard a lot of love for UC San Diego, right?
I saw that too.
Their first year being able to qualify for the NCAA tournament, and they're in. Yeah,
I think that Florida is going to be tough to beat.
totally.
I think that Duke with Cooper Flag, tough to beat. It's like those obvious teams that are really tough. Also, I saw somebody like a 12 seed is favored over a 5 seed. Did you see that?
Oh, is that an Oklahoma matchup?
I'm not sure what matchup that is. But yeah, definitely like that hasn't happened since like 2011, I believe.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a weird thing. But yeah, I don't know too much about March Madness. I will be honest, but definitely always a fun time. You get to watch basketball all the time. I remember being in high school and like pulling up the game and then like working on math homework at the same time, just in class. Definitely not allowed. I don't encourage that, but used to do that just to watch March Madness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. March Madness is always fun. It's always fun to watch. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I just Googled that 12 seed favored over 5. It's Colorado State, future Pac-12 member Colorado State as the 12 seed favored over number 5 Memphis. Maybe a potential future Pac-12 member that hasn't been settled yet. But so that'll be exciting to watch. And then on the women's side of things, just it's been fun to see that game continue to grow, and I think it's great. I was surprised of how recent it's been since all the women's March Madness games being broadcast in the same fashion that the men's games are. Like ESPN, picked up that broadcast contract, and so obviously there was the excitement around Caitlin Clark, and that was fantastic last year with Iowa. You have some other big names to watch on the women's side, like Juju Watkins of USC, which is incredible. You've got maybe could Oregon State be a Cinderella story? They weren't expected to make the tournament as an at-large team, but they ended up just getting the automatic bid by winning the West Coast Conference, and so that could be interesting to see. And you just got I think there's a lot of stories there. Notre Dame to keep an eye on, and a lot of fun. South Carolina continues to amaze, and so if you're a basketball fan or just a fan of sports, you won't be bored for like the next month. This is like between March Madness, baseball. It's like the best time of year for sports. I think it's either this time or October or like early college football season, September. But October's fun because you got playoff baseball and college football, some marquee college football matchups, but March Madness. NFL speculation, sometimes it's even more fun to speculate about football than it is to actually watch. And so
about women's as well, though, LSU is sold every single year, so I think that they're also a team to look out for.
Absolutely, that's gonna be insane.
But yeah, March Madness is always great. Baseball's beginning as well, so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
And then I think our last topic is the Seahawks. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can touch on Seahawks. Like, what the heck is going on there?
I saw this. Okay, if we ready to jump into this?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Buckle
Well,
in.
the Sam Darnold deal is 3 years, technically. But I also saw that only the first year is fully guaranteed. So basically, it's a 1 year, $37.5 million contract that the Seahawks can get out of next year if they wanted to. I think his contract is guaranteed for the next year, the week after the Super Bowl. So if you don't make the Super Bowl, if you don't make the playoffs, you have enough time to decide if we want to keep Sam Darnold for the next year.
Yeah.
And the same thing after that. So the Sam Darnold deal I wasn't so excited for. I feel a lot better about it now. Because now it's more like a prove it deal. Kind of how Geno had for his first year as a Seahawk as well. Mm-hmm. Starter at least. And then as well, DK Metcalf, I mean, he wanted out. They let him out. Got a second round pick. Pretty happy about the second round pick, 52nd overall. Cool with that. Tyler Lockett, love that guy. Love that he loves Seattle, but his contract hit was too high. He had to go. The cut made sense. If you think about it, like Cooper Kupp for $15 million a year is a lot less than you'd be paying Tyler Lockett for next year. I don't know how much production you get out of Cooper Kupp because he gets injured all the time. He tore both ACLs at one point. He had a concussion problem last year. He missed a few games, so he got 3 years, $45 million, so $15 a year. Like I said, not too angry about that. Obviously, Eastern Washington. I'm from Eastern Washington, so I love Cooper Kupp. Excited about that. I think everybody in my family was joyous over that. So that made sense. And then as well as DeMarcus Lawrence, that makes sense. He's near the end of his career. I think it's still 11th year, but not too expensive a contract. And then you just bolster up that D-line. Mike McDonald wants to make that D-line as good as possible. That's his forte, his defense. So you do that. You re-sign Ernest Jones to a good contract. I think he got $13 million a year or $12 million a year. Pretty cheap for a really good middle linebacker. Absolutely. And leader of your defense. So yeah, a lot of stuff to be excited for the Seahawks. I was pretty dreadful when we first traded Geno. I didn't understand what we were doing. Sam Darnold contract makes sense, but you have to make that offensive line good because Sam Darnold cannot handle pressure. So that's my main deal. Drafted an lineman. Tevin Jenkins, I don't know when this podcast comes out, but Tevin Jenkins is visiting Seattle today on Monday. Yeah. So we'll see if he signs a contract. And bolster up the line, get some good guards. You mainly need a left guard. You got Oluwati at center. I'm cool with that. I like him. Christian Haynes, who we drafted last year out of UConn, he was 24 years old. But yeah, that made sense to me. I like him, but he didn't play well in his rookie year, so the Seahawks need to either figure out if he's going to play or get a new right guard. But it's mainly inside offensive line, interior offensive line. You got two good bolstered left tackles. Get a good offensive line, you should be good. Should be a good year. What's your thoughts?
Totally, I would agree. I think I think Geno's the better quarterback than Darnold. I agree. But the logic behind choosing Darnold is you have more resources to create a better team overall.
Because Geno was asking for 45 to 50. Yeah. And you get send Darnold for 35 so that makes sense.
And so I think I could see the light with that. And I mean, I love Geno. Like, it was fun watching. Like, him scoring that 13-yard rushing touchdown against the Niners was probably the most fun I've had watching football in a long time. That was fantastic. But the reality is that you've got to prioritize kind of the creating the better team and winning. And maybe no, that's not saying Sam Darnold's going to be the one that delivers a Lombardi Trophy back to Seattle, but I think he has a lot better chance of doing that with the contract that he has than Geno would, most with a $45-50 million contract.
I also will say I love JSN, I love Cooper Kupp, but they do very similar things. Although Clayton Kubiak offense, Kyle Shanahan offense, Gary Kubiak offense, Mike Shanahan offense, goes back and back. But when he coached for the Broncos, they ran a wide zone offense. So that was basically two slot guys. Mm-hmm. They had Ed McCaffrey, and I forgot who the other guy was. Joe Davis? I don't know. I forgot his name. But they had two slot receivers who would block really well and then run routes towards the middle, run the dig routes. And it was excellent offense. It's been elite since the Shanahan days of the 1990s to today. It's still awesome with Shanahan and the other Kubiaks. So I don't know. I'm excited for the offense. It's going to look very different from what we're used to. But yeah, definitely going to be a lot of fun this year.
And I think there's a potential for, I mean, you saw JSN's excitement. JSN was kind of like all the Seahawks fans, like live tweeting all the moves.
On Instagram?
Like, yeah, on Instagram. And just like, like, oh, Tyler's gone, DK's gone, Gino gone, no, like the crying emojis.
I just woke up and saw this news. Gino got traded.
And then, when Cooper Kupp signed, he just tweets, "Cool." Yeah. And so I think he's obviously excited. I mean, you never want to see, your coworkers, your friends move on. Like, that's difficult.
Yeah.
But the chance to like meet and get to know Cooper Kupp and to, potentially gain a mentor, I think Cooper's going to only be a positive, only do great things for JSN. Not that JSN is like bad or anything, obviously, but like I think there's only, you can go from great to all-time great or good to great, and we'll see how that goes. But I think there's a lot to love about that Cooper Kupp JSN wide receiver room and the things that they can learn from each other and mostly as well. And I think that could be super exciting. And then you look at as you were saying, the defensive line. I like the DeMarcus Lawrence signing. They basically had to choose between Draymond Jones or DeMarcus Lawrence, and Draymond was at like a $16.5 million cap hit, and he ended up signing for $10 million with Tennessee, or yeah,
still around that ballpark.
Yeah, and so I think bringing Lawrence in is a good call. It was funny to see the Twitter drama with Parsons. Yeah, that was interesting.
I'll take DeMarcus Lawrence over Draymond Jones. Pretty much every day of the week. By the way,
I mean, there's injury concerns all around, but we unfortunately didn't get to see Draymond as much last year on the playing for the Seahawks, and so. The idea is that Lawrence will be on the field more.
Third highest cap hit on the team.
Yeah.
So it just made sense to move on.
Yeah.
But also I'm excited to see what we'll talk about this more as it comes on. But with the draft, I don't know where they're going. Either interior offensive line, wide receiver, or safety is my guess. But it'll be fun to watch. There's some really fun prospects in this year's draft that the Seahawks could draft. So yeah, excited for that. It'll be really fun to cover.
Yeah. So we'll look forward to all that, and so you can read about all these topics, including the Seahawks. We take some of the Seattle Times and Associated Press coverage, and we root that, put that on the page. So if you pick up a Tribune, you can read about what's happening in the Hawks world of the Seahawks, world of the Mariners, March Madness, and then also, of course, primarily our local coverage. And so, for more on the Cougars, the Vandals, the Warriors, and the local prep scene. Keep it tuned to the Lewiston Tribune, lmtribune.com, and the Moscow Pullman Daily News, dailynews.com. And so, Trevor, is there anything that you'd like to add or anything that on your mind? Yeah.
Thanks for letting me be. I mean, to everybody, I guess. Thanks for hiring me at the Lewiston. Obviously not you, so hiring me, but getting hired at the Lewiston Tribune. And thanks for inviting me to this community. I'm glad to be here. I love Lewiston so far. And Clarkson, obviously. I haven't been to Clarkson as much as I've been in Lewiston, but I've only been here for 2 weeks. Glad to be here with you, dude, working with you again. And writing. Obviously, I'm not as knowledgeable as I can be yet, but I'm learning more about the team and the location as I go on. So I appreciate your patience if you're listening. Yeah, thanks for listening. I had a really fun time, and I'm excited to be on here next week as well.
Yeah, and we're so glad to have you, Trevor. Thank you so much for being on this podcast today. And the LC Valley is like a very deep sports scene. NAIA World Series, golf with Joel Damon.
The World Series is going to be so much fun. It's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. And so we're really excited to bring you that coverage, and as we continue to go through the year. And so March Madness is here. Baseball is almost here. Baseball is here on some levels. College and high school, and so spring is here. It's March, baby. It's March. And so for Trevor Junt, I'm Sam Taylor. Make sure to subscribe and find this podcast, The Final Whistle, Lewiston Tribune Sports Podcast, wherever you find your podcast, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and online at lmtribune.com. And listen to this episode listen to our show every week if you want to learn about what's new in the LC Valley and the Palouse and sports scenes. And thank you so much. Yeah, it's March. Woo.
Read about sports, learn about sports, listen about sports. Have a good one.